the misunderstood signal, the discovery that changed everything. Ambassador Kryn of the Valkyrie Empire stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel Harmonious Dawn, staring at the blue and green planet that filled the main viewport. His silver skin shimmered with confusion as he tried to reconcile what his sensors were telling him with what his eyes could see. This was supposed to be a simple first contact mission with a primitive species that had barely discovered radio waves. Instead, his ship had been intercepted by 3 massive orbital defense platforms before they even reached the outer edge of the star system. The distress signal that had brought them here, a repeating pulse of electromagnetic energy that had been broadcasting for what his scientists estimated was at least 40 standard cycles, should have indicated a civilization in desperate need of help. The Valkyrie Empire prided itself on being the guiding hand for emerging species, offering technology, protection, and membership in the galactic community. Kryn had performed this duty 17 times before. It was always the same: grateful primitives, overwhelmed by the vastness of space, eager to accept the Empire's generous terms of membership, but this time felt different from the moment they crossed into the system. NC unexpected welcome. The communications officer, a young Valkyrie named Sess, turned from her station with visible anxiety. Her chromatophores flickered between blue and yellow, broadcasting her nervousness to everyone on the bridge. Ambassador, we are receiving a transmission. It is in our language. Perfect Valkyrie, with proper dialectical inflections and formal diplomatic protocols. Kryn felt his own skin shift to a darker shade of silver. How could a species that was supposed to be primitive know their language? The Valkyrie had never made contact with this sector before. Their linguistic database was one of the most closely guarded secrets in the Empire, containing over 15,000 languages from across known space. "Play it," Kryn commanded, keeping his voice steady despite his growing unease. A human face appeared on the screen. The being had smooth skin, the color of rich soil, with dark eyes that seemed to assess everything in a single glance. Her hair was black and pulled back in a practical style. She wore a uniform that was clearly military in nature, with insignias that suggested rank and authority. When she spoke, her Valkyrie was flawless. "Welcome to the Sol System, Ambassador Kryn of the Valkyrie Empire. I am Captain Rebecca Torres of the United Earth Space Command. We have been expecting your arrival. Please maintain your current trajectory and velocity. Escort ships will guide you to our diplomatic station orbiting the 3rd planet. Any deviation from the prescribed flight path will be interpreted as a hostile action." The transmission ended before Kryn could respond. Questions without answers. The bridge fell silent. Kryn's tactical officer, Commander Wrath, was the first to speak. His voice carried the edge of someone whose entire worldview had just been shattered. "They were expecting us? How is that possible? Our mission was classified. We only detected their signal 6 cycles ago and departed immediately." Kryn moved to the tactical display, studying the holographic representation of the space around them. What he saw made his blood run cold. The 3 defense platforms they had detected initially were just the beginning. As their sensors penetrated deeper, more contacts appeared. Dozens of satellites, multiple space stations, and what appeared to be a shipyard facility on one of the planet's moons. But most disturbing were the 16 vessels that had taken up positions around the Harmonious Dawn. They maintained a respectful distance, but their weapon systems were clearly active and tracking his ship. "Run a full analysis of those escort vessels," Kryn ordered. "I want to know what we are dealing with." The science officer worked in silence for several minutes, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. When she finally looked up, her skin had turned pale gray, the Valkyrie color of shock. "Ambassador, these vessels are using technology that should not exist. Their power generation is based on principles we only theorized about 3 cycles ago. Their weapon systems appear to be particle beam accelerators, with yield capacities that rival our heavy cruisers. And their hull composition. She paused, rechecking her data as if hoping she had made an error. Their hull composition includes materials we cannot identify. Either they have access to elements we have never discovered, or they have mastered molecular engineering to a degree that surpasses anything in known space. Kryn felt the weight of command pressing down on him. He had been chosen for this mission because of his experience and his calm demeanor in unexpected situations. But nothing in his long career had prepared him for this. A species that was supposed to be primitive, that should have been sending out desperate pleas for help, was instead demonstrating technological superiority and military readiness that suggested they were anything but newcomers to the galactic stage. The diplomatic station, the escort ships, guided them to a massive orbital station that hung in space like a gleaming jewel. It was enormous, easily 3 times the size of any Valkyrie diplomatic facility, with rotating sections that suggested artificial gravity and docking bays that could accommodate vessels far larger than the harmonious Dawn. As they approached, Kryn noticed something that made him pause. The station's design incorporated architectural elements from multiple species, including some that he recognized from civilizations that had gone extinct thousands of cycles ago. The docking procedure was smooth and professional. The humans clearly knew what they were doing. Once the airlock sealed and the atmospheric readings confirmed compatibility, Kryn prepared to disembark. He chose a small delegation: Commander Vrath for security assessment, Science Officer Lyra for technical evaluation, and Communications Officer Sess for linguistic analysis. They would represent the Valkyrie Empire in this first face-to-face meeting with humanity. The airlock opened to reveal a reception area that was both functional and elegant. The walls displayed views of Earth, a planet that looked remarkably similar to the Valkyrie homeworld, with vast oceans and green continents. Standing in the center of the room was Captain Torres, along with 4 other humans in similar uniforms. They did not bow or show any of the deference that primitive species usually displayed when meeting representatives of an advanced civilization. Instead, they stood with quiet confidence. Like equals meeting equals, the warning buoy truth Captain Torres stepped forward, and Kryn noticed that she moved with the grace of someone comfortable in artificial gravity. Ambassador Kryn, welcome to Orbital Station Unity. I apologize for the military escort, but given the circumstances of your arrival, we felt it necessary to establish clear protocols. Kryn performed the traditional Valkyrie greeting, touching his forehead and chest in a gesture of peaceful intent. Captain Torres, I must confess confusion. We received what we interpreted as a distress signal from your world. Our empire has come to offer assistance and welcome you into the galactic community. Torres smiled, and there was something in that expression that made Kryn deeply uncomfortable. It was not the smile of someone grateful for rescue. It was the smile of someone who knew something you did not. Ambassador, I believe there has been a significant misunderstanding, Torres said, gesturing for them to follow her through a corridor lined with transparent sections that offered breathtaking views of Earth below. What you detected was not a distress signal. It was a warning buoy, one of several hundred we have positioned throughout this region of space. They are designed to broadcast on multiple frequencies, informing any approaching vessels that this system is claimed territory and that unauthorized entry will be met with appropriate response. Kryn stopped walking. Claimed territory? But your species only achieved spaceflight recently. Our monitoring systems indicated you were still in the early stages of exploring your own planetary system. Torres turned to face him, and now her expression was serious. Ambassador, your monitoring systems showed you exactly what we wanted you to see. Humanity has been exploring space for far longer than you realize. We have been very careful about what information we allow to leak beyond our borders. She led them into a conference room where a large holographic display dominated the center. With a gesture, she activated it, and Kryn found himself staring at a star map that made his heart skip several beats. The map showed not just the Sol system, but dozens of surrounding systems, all marked with human symbols. Colony markers, mining operations, research stations, military outposts. "This is impossible," Science Officer Lyra whispered. "These systems are uncharted. We have never detected any civilizations in this entire sector." "That is because we did not want to be detected," Torres replied calmly. 73 years ago, our scientists discovered something on Mars, the fourth planet in our system. Ancient ruins. A facility that had been abandoned for millions of years. Inside, we found technology, star maps, and most importantly, a warning. She manipulated the display, and an image appeared. It showed a structure half buried in red Martian soil, its architecture unlike anything in the known galaxy. Kryn leaned closer, his scientific training overriding his diplomatic shock. The mathematical precision of the structure, the way it incorporated principles of universal geometry, was eerily familiar. The ancient connection. The warning told us that the galaxy was not always as it is now, Torres continued. That there were powers and civilizations that rose and fell before any of the current spacefaring species even evolved. It told us to be cautious, to prepare, and to remain hidden until we were strong enough to stand on our own terms. Commander Vroth, who had been silent until now, spoke with barely controlled anger. "You are saying that you have been deliberately hiding from the galactic community? That you have expanded into unclaimed space without permission or oversight? This violates every protocol of civilized conduct." Torres met his gaze without flinching. "Commander, those protocols were established by civilizations that assumed they were the first, the most advanced, the natural rulers of the galaxy. But what if that assumption is wrong? What if humanity is not a newcomer to the stars, but a returning presence?" She changed the display again, and this time it showed genetic data, archaeological findings, and linguistic analysis that spanned multiple worlds. "We have spent 7 decades investigating the ruins we found. Not just on Mars, but on 17 other worlds and systems you consider unexplored. Every site contains the same markers, the same architectural principles, and most telling of all, the same genetic traces. Traces that match human DNA with 99.7% accuracy." Kryn felt his world tilting. What she was suggesting was not just improbable. It was revolutionary. It meant that humanity was not a primitive species emerging into the galactic stage. It meant they were the descendants of whatever ancient civilization had built those ruins. A civilization that had spread across the stars when the Valkyrie were still aquatic creatures in their homeworld's oceans. "We have been waiting," Torres said softly. "Waiting and watching. Preparing for the day when the current galactic powers would notice us. We needed to be ready, to be strong enough that we could meet you as equals, rather than as supplicants begging for technology and protection." She looked at each of them in turn. "So no, Ambassador Kryn, humanity does not need your empire's assistance. What we need is for the galaxy to understand that we are not newcomers. We are coming home." The truth unveiled the weight of revelation. The silence in the conference room stretched for what felt like an eternity. Ambassador Kryn's mind raced through decades of diplomatic training, searching for the appropriate response to a situation that had no precedent. Everything he thought he knew about galactic history, about the natural order of civilizations, about the Valkyrie Empire's role as shepherds of emerging species, had just been turned upside down. Science Officer Lyra was the first to break the silence, her voice trembling with a mixture of excitement and fear. "If what you are saying is true, Captain Torres, then the implications are staggering. The precursor civilization has been a myth, a legend that archaeologists have debated for generations. Most scholars believe the scattered ruins found across various worlds are simply coincidental, the result of parallel evolution and similar environmental pressures. Torres nodded, her expression understanding but firm. That is what we thought as well, initially. The first expedition to the Mars facility was led by Dr. James Chun, a xenoarchaeologist who had spent his entire career studying what little evidence existed of ancient civilizations. What he found changed everything we understood about our place in the universe. She pulled up another holographic display, this one showing a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes standing inside what appeared to be a vast underground chamber. The walls were covered in symbols that seemed to shift and change even as they watched. Responding to some unknown stimulus, Dr. Chun's voice came through the recording, filled with awe and barely contained emotion. Day 47 of the excavation. We have penetrated the main archive chamber. The technology here is still functioning after what carbon dating suggests is at least 4.2 million years. The environmental controls activated automatically when we entered, adjusting the atmosphere to match Earth normal conditions without any input from us. It knew we were human. It was waiting for humans. The archive of ages, the recording continued, showing Dr. Chun approaching a crystalline structure in the center of the chamber. When he placed his hand on it, the entire room came alive with light and sound. Images projected into the air, showing star systems, planetary formations, and what appeared to be vast construction projects on a scale that dwarfed anything the current galactic civilizations had achieved. The archive contained a complete record, Torres explained as they watched the recording. A history of the civilization that built these facilities. They called themselves the Terran Concordat, and they spread across this entire region of space over 4 million years ago. They built colonies on hundreds of worlds, established trade routes, created art and science and philosophy that we are only beginning to understand. Commander Vrath leaned forward, his skepticism warring with the evidence before his eyes. If this Concordat was so advanced, what happened to them? Why did they vanish? And why would they leave these archives waiting for a primitive species to discover them millions of years later? Torres's expression grew somber. They did not vanish, Commander. They evolved. The archive shows that the Concordat reached a technological singularity, a point where they transcended physical existence as we understand it. But before they made that transition, they did something remarkable. They seeded dozens of worlds with their genetic material, encoded with dormant potential. They wanted to ensure that if anything happened to them, if their ascension failed, or if they could never return, life would continue. Intelligence would emerge again. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle over them. Earth was one of those seeded worlds, Commander. Humanity is not descended from the Terran Concordat. We are the Terran Concordat, reborn after 4 million years of evolution. The network revealed Kryn found his voice, though it sounded distant to his own ears. You said you found ruins on 17 other worlds. Show us. Torres manipulated the controls, and the holographic display transformed into a 3-dimensional map of the local stellar neighborhood. 17 systems lit up in blue, each one marked with coordinates and brief descriptions. What shocked Kryn was not just the number of sites, but their locations. Several of them were in systems that the Valkyrie Empire had surveyed and declared empty. Others were in territories claimed by different galactic powers. We have been very careful about our exploration, Torres said. We identified the pattern in the star maps we found on Mars. The Concordat left markers, specific astronomical alignments that would only be visible from Earth, and only during certain centuries. They were waiting for humanity to reach a specific level of technological development before we could find them. Once we understood the pattern, we began searching. Every site we found confirmed the same story. The same genetic markers. The same architectural principles. The same message. She highlighted one system in particular, a binary star system that Kryn recognized immediately. It was in Valkyrie space, a system they had surveyed 60 cycles ago and found nothing but lifeless rocks and gas giants. "This is the Kepler 442 system," Torres said. "Your empire surveyed it and declared it devoid of any structures or resources worth exploiting. But you missed something. The Concordat facility there is buried 3 kilometers beneath the surface of the second planet, shielded by geological formations and technology designed to be invisible to standard scanning methods. We found it because we knew what to look for." Asterisk Communications Officer Sess spoke up, her color shifting rapidly as she processed the implications. "You are saying that there are human facilities in Valkyrie territory? That you have been operating in our space without permission or notification?" "Not human facilities," Officer Sess. "Concordat facilities. And they existed in that space 4 million years before the Valkyrie Empire claimed it." Torres's voice was gentle but unyielding. "We are not invaders, and we are not trespassers. We are simply reclaiming what was always ours." The evidence Mounts Lyra had been quietly working on her portable analysis device, cross-referencing the data Torres had provided with the Valkyrie Empire's own archaeological records. When she looked up, her skin had turned a pale shade that indicated profound shock. "Ambassador, I am detecting correlations. There are 17 unexplained archaeological sites in our database, locations where we found structures that did not match any known civilization. We classified them as anomalies and sealed them for future study. The coordinates match the locations Captain Torres has identified." Kryn felt a cold certainty settling over him. This was not a fabrication or an elaborate deception. The humans were telling the truth, or at least a version of the truth that was supported by evidence. But if that was the case, then the entire foundation of galactic civilization needed to be reevaluated. "Show us more," he said quietly. "Show us everything." Torres nodded and expanded the display. Now it showed not just the 17 confirmed sites, but dozens more marked as potential locations based on the patterns they had identified. Some were in unexplored space. Others were in the heart of established civilizations. And a few, disturbingly, were on worlds that currently hosted thriving alien populations. "We have been cataloging these sites for 7 decades, Torres explained. "We have explored every location carefully, extracting data and technology while leaving no trace of our presence. We learned from the archive on Mars that the galaxy is a dangerous place, that young civilizations are often exploited or destroyed by older powers. We decided that humanity would not be one of those victims. We would prepare, we would learn, and we would only reveal ourselves when we were ready." She looked directly at Kryn. "Your arrival here, Ambassador, triggered our timeline. We had hoped for another decade or 2 before making contact, but your detection of our warning buoy forced our hand. So now we face a choice. We can continue to hide, pretending to be a primitive species while we build our strength in secret. Or we can step forward and claim our rightful place in galactic civilization." The gathering storm before Kryn could respond, an alarm sounded throughout the station. Captain Torres immediately activated a communication device on her wrist. "Torres here, report." A male voice responded, tense and urgent. "Captain, we have multiple incoming vessels. 17 ships total, representing 9 different civilizations. They are demanding explanations for the military buildup they have detected in this system. The Zephyrini Collective is threatening to file a formal complaint with the Galactic Council. The Korvath Federation has activated their weapon systems and is demanding we stand down our defense platforms." Torres exchanged a look with Kryn, and in that moment he saw the carefully maintained diplomatic facade slipped slightly. Beneath it was steel resolve and a hint of concern. Acknowledge all hails. Inform them that we are hosting diplomatic negotiations with the Volcari Empire, and that we will address all concerns shortly. And Lieutenant, make sure our defense grid remains at full readiness. If anyone fires first, we will respond appropriately. She turned back to the Volcari delegation. It seems word has spread faster than I anticipated. Ambassador, in the next few hours, you and I are going to be at the center of the most significant diplomatic event in modern galactic history. Every major power is going to demand answers. They are going to want to know who we are, what we want, and whether we pose a threat to their interests. Kryn nodded slowly, his diplomatic instincts reasserting themselves despite his personal turmoil. What do you intend to tell them, Captain? The truth, Torres replied simply. All of it. But I would like your support, Ambassador. The Volcari Empire is respected throughout the galaxy. If you stand with us, if you acknowledge the validity of our claims, it will carry significant weight with the other civilizations. A choice that shapes the future. Kryn looked at his officers. Vroth's expression was guarded, clearly still processing the security implications of everything they had learned. Lyra was practically vibrating with scientific excitement, her colors shifting through the entire spectrum as her mind raced through possibilities. Sess simply looked overwhelmed, a sentiment Kryn could deeply empathize with. You are asking me to potentially overturn the established order of galactic civilization, Kryn said carefully. To support claims that could invalidate territorial agreements that have stood for thousands of cycles. To acknowledge that humanity has been operating in secret, potentially violating dozens of treaties and protocols. This is not a decision I can make lightly, Captain Torres. I understand, Ambassador, and I am not asking you to make that decision right now. Torres gestured to the viewport, where they could see the approaching vessels, each one representing a different civilization, a different set of interests and concerns. What I am asking is that you listen with an open mind when we present our evidence to the assembled powers, that you evaluate what you have seen here today and make your decision based on facts rather than preconceptions. She activated the holographic display one more time, but now it showed something different. It was a projection of galactic civilization as it currently existed, with all the major empires and federations marked in different colors, their territories clearly delineated. Then the display shifted, showing the same region of space, but overlaid with the ancient, concordat boundaries based on the locations of the discovered facilities. That the overlap was undeniable. Every major civilization in the galaxy was occupying space that had once been part of the Terran concordat. Not just occupying it, but building on top of ancient human ruins, extracting resources from worlds that humanity's ancestors had once called home, all without realizing the true history of these territories. We are not asking for everything to be returned to us, Torres said quietly. That would be neither practical nor just. The current inhabitants of these worlds have their own legitimate claims based on thousands of years of occupation. What we are asking for is recognition, acknowledgement that humanity is not a newcomer, that we have ancient rights that must be considered in any future territorial negotiations, and that we deserve to be treated as equals rather than as primitives to be managed and controlled. The assembly begins. The conference room's communication system activated, and a human officer's face appeared on the screen. Captain Torres, all incoming vessels have been assigned docking bays. Representatives from each civilization are requesting immediate audience. Station Commander Reynolds suggests we convene a formal assembly in Conference Hall 1. It is the only space large enough to accommodate everyone. Torres nodded. Inform Commander Reynolds that we will convene the assembly in 1 hour. That should give everyone time to settle in and for us to prepare our presentation. She turned to Kryn. Ambassador, I would be honored if you and your delegation would stand with me when I address the assembly. You have seen more evidence than anyone else here. Your perspective will be invaluable. Kryn felt the weight of history pressing down on him. In the next hour, he would have to make a decision that could reshape galactic civilization. He could support the humans, lending credibility to their claims, and potentially triggering a complete re-evaluation of territorial rights and historical understanding. Or he could reject their evidence, maintain the status quo, and preserve the order that had governed the galaxy for millennia. But as he looked at the holographic display, at the undeniable correlation between ancient Concordat sites and human genetic markers, at the technological sophistication that humanity had achieved in just 7 decades of secret development, he realized that the choice was not really about what he wanted. It was about what was true. "Captain Torres," he said finally, "I will stand with you at the assembly. I will present what I have seen and learned today. But I cannot promise that I will support your claims until I have heard all the arguments and examined all the evidence. What I can promise is that I will be fair, objective, and committed to discovering the truth, whatever it may be." Torres smiled, and this time it was genuine warmth rather than diplomatic courtesy. "That is all I ask, Ambassador. The truth is on our side. We just need people willing to listen." The price of secrets. As they prepared to leave the conference room, Lyra pulled Kryn aside. Her colors had settled into a deep purple, the shade of profound contemplation. "Ambassador, there is something I need to tell you. Something I discovered while analyzing the data Captain Torres provided." Kryn waited, sensing that whatever she was about to say would be significant. "The genetic markers in the Concordat ruins do not just match human DNA," Lyra said quietly. "They show evidence of deliberate engineering, of artificial selection and enhancement that goes far beyond natural evolution. And the timeline suggests that these enhancements were implemented after the initial seeding, during a period when the Concordat was actively monitoring and guiding the development of their successor species." Kryn felt a chill run through him. "What are you saying, Lyra?" "I am saying that humanity was not just left to evolve randomly. They were cultivated, shaped, prepared for a specific purpose. The question is what that purpose was, and whether humanity today even knows the full extent of what they were designed to become." Before Kryn could respond, Torres returned, her expression professional, but with an underlying urgency. "Ambassador, the assembly is gathering early. It seems that some of the arriving civilizations are more agitated than we anticipated. We need to move now." Kryn nodded, filing Lyra's revelation away for later consideration. As they walked through the corridors of the human station toward the assembly hall, he could hear the murmur of dozens of different languages, the sounds of a galaxy coming together to confront a truth that challenged everything they thought they knew. Asterisk. The doors to Conference Hall 1 opened before them, revealing a vast circular chamber with tiered seating arranged to face a central platform. Already, representatives from 9 different civilizations were taking their places, their expressions ranging from curiosity to hostility. More would arrive in the coming hours as word spread throughout the galaxy. "A new era begins." Captain Torres stepped onto the central platform, her bearing confident and composed. Kryn and his delegation took positions to her right, a silent statement of willingness to hear her out. Behind them, a massive holographic projection system activated, ready to display the evidence that would either revolutionize galactic understanding or spark the greatest diplomatic crisis in recorded history. Torres raised her hand, and the assembled representatives fell silent. When she spoke, her voice carried to every corner of the chamber, translated simultaneously into dozens of languages by sophisticated AI systems. "Honored delegates, members of the galactic community, I am Captain Rebecca Torres of the United Earth Space Command. On behalf of humanity, I welcome you to Orbital Station Unity. You have come here seeking answers about who we are and what we represent. Today, I will give you those answers. Today, I will show you evidence that will challenge your understanding of galactic history and humanity's place within it. She gestured, and the holographic display activated, showing the image of Earth from space, beautiful and vibrant against the darkness of the void. Today, you will learn that humanity is not a newcomer to the stars. We are not primitive. We are not supplicants seeking your guidance and protection. We are the inheritors of the oldest and most advanced civilization this galaxy has ever known. We are the children of the Terran Concordat, and we have come home. The assembly erupted into chaos, dozens of voices shouting questions and objections simultaneously. But through it all, the holographic display continued to cycle through images of ancient ruins, genetic analysis, technological comparisons, and star maps that painted an undeniable picture of humanity's true heritage. Kryn watched it all unfold, knowing that whatever happened next would echo through the galaxy for generations to come. The age of assumptions was over. The age of truth, however uncomfortable, had begun. And humanity, patient and prepared, was ready to claim its place among the stars, not as students, but as masters returning to reclaim their ancient legacy. The question that remained was whether the galaxy was ready to accept them. Asterisk.